I didn't just bring you onto the show here today because I'm obsessed with your cookies and all of your products, but also because of your ties with diabetes itself and your own obstacles that you've had to overcome with this disease. So go ahead and tell me a little bit of your backstory and kind of that oh snap moment that happened in your life that not only changed the trajectory of your life, but also your career.
Yeah. Okay. It's a long story, so sit tight. So when I was in my mid 20s, I was personal training. I had a personal training like health and wellness business. So I was coaching people on how to eat well and telling them all the right things. But in my own diet, I had a lot of carbs. I was a big fan of beer, so I was drinking, and I came to find out that I was type 2 diabetic. The symptoms were kind of hitting me, and I was kind of just like blowing past all the red flags. I knew something was wrong. I had no energy throughout the day. I was drinking 5, 6, 7 cups of coffee a day just to kind of stay awake. And my mood swings and energy would kind of fluctuate with food. When I had food, I was happy. I was energetic. I felt great. About an hour or two later, I was lethargic. I could barely keep my eyes open. So I started realizing that there was probably something very wrong. One day, my like oh snap moment, I was driving home. It was kind of cold out, so I had the heater on, which is kind of rare in Houston. And the I guess the between the warm air and the nighttime drive, I fell asleep driving, just completely dozed off. I hit like the side of the rail, like bounced off and woke up, and I had to stick my head out the window to stay awake. So I told my parents, and they obviously freaked out. And my parents were like, you should go get checked out just to make sure everything's okay. So I did. I set up an appointment. I got my blood work done. And like a day later, I got a call, and my doctor told me that I was in great health. He's like, I've got good news. You're in great health. And I was like, okay, well, that's good. And then he said, but you have type 2 diabetes. So I'm going to give you some metformin, which is like a medication that you use to control your blood sugar, and send you on your way, and you'll be fine. And my background is in health and wellness. I double science majored. And so I was like, you know what? I think I can address this without medications. And I wanted to. So I did. So from that day to the next, I cut out everything processed from my diet. I quit drinking. No simple anything, simple carbs, simple sugars, all wholesome ingredients. I kind of went on a sort of keto diet. It was just high fat, lower carb, really. And like about a week later, I stopped falling asleep in the middle of the day. I had energy. I started feeling really good. And 2.5 months later, I felt the best I had felt in years. And I got my blood work done again. And I effectively reversed my blood sugar from being in the diabetic zone to even below pre diabetic levels. And so the doctor was really surprised. He's like, we either, you know, screwed up the tests or you did something really drastic. And I was like, oh, yeah, I just gave up everything I like to eat. Anybody can do that. So I've been actively managing my health with food and exercise now for like 8 years or something, and still well below the diabetic zones. So it's it's something that I've had to continuously do at certain sacrifices. Like I can't have all the sugar I used to have, which I probably shouldn't have in the first place. But I've had to find ways around it, and that's kind of what brought us to ChipMonk.
And in this day and age, it's all the sugars, it's all the sweets, it's in our day-to-day life. It's the holidays after all. We're going home to families and friends, and they have all these cookies and cakes for these celebrations. And those who do suffer from diabetes always feel a little left out, or they have to go and seek those drugs out to treat the symptoms if things get out of hand. But now bring in chipmunk baking. So I feel like we're going to the roots of your business here. You are tired of feeling left out, correct?
Yeah. So I would go out to breakfast with friends, and they'd have toast and butter, and that's like my favorite snack, by the way. And I couldn't have it anymore. I couldn't have the milkshakes. I couldn't have the ice cream. Couldn't have the cheesecake. And these are all things that I actively eat I used to actively eat on a daily basis, and I couldn't have it anymore. And in the beginning, it wasn't so hard because I knew that it was for my health. And I was like, I can do this. I have the discipline. Like, I don't want to affect my health. But as the years drag on, it just dwindles, it gets harder and harder. And so I figured there had to be products out there for people that were looking to keep their blood sugar down. And so I set out to find them. And unfortunately, most of them weren't to my liking. They were either bland or, everything that I liked, I couldn't have because of the ingredients, and everything I could have that I deemed okay from like an ingredients perspective didn't taste very good. So I felt like I was constantly fighting this battle of sacrifice. I had to either sacrifice my health for food that I liked or sacrifice my taste buds for stuff that I should have. And I had to learn to cook and bake for myself. And that's kind of how this started. David and I were working at a co-working space, and we were around all these businesses, and we figured, if all these other people are doing it, like we can do it too. So we brainstormed, and we were like, what can we do? So we had all these great ideas, and none of them really led to anything. And one of them that I was really excited about was actually already being done by like 2 or 3 companies very well. So I was a little sad, and I was like, you know what, I need like a pick me up or something. It was hard. So we were at HEB, and I went into the baking aisle, and I was like, I'm just going to recreate a cookie. And so I looked up a generic cookie recipe, and I was like, just replace all the ingredients that you can't have with something else. And so I found the almond flour, the sugar alcohol, Lakanto sweetener. And that same day, I made pancakes, I made muffins and cookies. And admittedly, the pancakes were dry and not good. The brown or the muffins, which I actually tried to make donuts, but they were actually they I just didn't have the pan for it. They were not great either. But the cookies, they were pretty good. So I gave some to David, and he's like, this is good. He's like, did you have to make this because you can't find anything like this? And I was like, well, yeah, in like so many words. And he's like, okay, let's make more. And tomorrow let's hand them out at our co-working space and see if people like them. And so we did. And lo and behold, people liked them. I didn't tell them what it was. So I was like, hey, do you guys want a cookie? I confirmed that there wasn't any nut allergies, but then after that, I was like, I didn't want to tell them that it was better for them because I didn't want them to be biased. And so they tried it. And they're like, oh wow, like the texture is a little different, but that tastes good. And then I gave them the whole spiel, like, well, that's sugar free, and like that's also gluten free. And like 2 weeks later, not even, we had a name and the first version of our packaging and products.
And I feel like that's the biggest obstacle with folks who are trying to become healthier and live those healthier lifestyles is getting those around them who they love to get on board as well. So not only are your products good for you, but they taste good. And if I were to give these to my family, my friends back at home, I would have to do essentially what you did and just not tell them it's healthy and let them enjoy it for what it is. So going back to the name, you started this business rather quickly. Whenever you gave David that cookie, hey, he's like, "Let's go. This is good to go. Let's have a career with this." What origin did the name come from? Because I'm looking at the two of you, and I'm like, there's so many ways that y'all could have named this. Y'all could have marketed this because your marketing techniques are phenomenal. Y'all could have done Bros Who Bake or these free bites or something like that. And ChipMonk Baking. What is up with the ChipMonk?
You want me to
Take this
on this one? So yeah, like we were selling the cookies. We knew we needed a business name, and we had been brainstorming for a while. Couldn't come up with anything good. What happened is Jose and I actually went on a road trip to Austin for like a guy's weekend trip, and we drove by this nut shop, and it had a giant squirrel statue, and it just kind of sparked something. We're like, oh wow, like squirrels, they like nuts, and our cookies are made out of nuts. Like maybe there's something there. But they were like, no, like there's way too many squirrel mascots, logos. What else is similar? I'm like, oh, chipmunk, right? Like chipmunks, they like nuts and seeds. They're kind of a good spirit animal for a company too, because they're really high energy, and we wanted to move fast and kind of try new things. And then we realized that monk fruit is one of our key sweeteners in our cookies. And so instead of MUNK for the monk, we spelled it MONK. And there's kind of the monk fruit aspect, but then also monks themselves are sort of a symbol of mindfulness and balance, which is ultimately what we wanted to encourage with our whole product line. It's not that you can't ever eat dessert. It's just that, yeah, you can choose to eat dessert, but do it in a mindful way. Like think about the ingredients that you're putting in your body. And so that all kind of came together into this sort of chipmunk idea.
I love puns, so
Yeah.
I was on board.
Jose is the king of like dad jokes and puns. So yeah.
Oh man, yeah, I love a good pun. This is another marketing type of question. Your team here in Houston. So whenever I founded you guys, I didn't even know y'all were Houston based, which is so funny because I found this product. I loved the product, and then I had the option online where I could get it shipped to me or pick up in store. And I was like, let me see pickup. And it was like right down the road. So I'm like, oh, that's convenient. A little too convenient at times. But being a Houston company, how much do you kind of pride yourself on your town and your marketing of people who live here and just the service that you bring them on a day-to-day basis?
So I actually grew up here, so this is really close to home for me. We knew right off the bat that a place like Austin is probably a better place to launch a food business because that's just what happens. People move to California or Austin and launch food there. And that's not really done in Houston. But at the same time, when you look at like the population, we are one of the most diabetic prone populations in the country. In fact, I think we have like one of the highest onsets of diabetes and pre-diabetes in the country. And so being a low carb, sugar-free product that is targeting people that need something like that, we figured this is the best place to kind of launch. And, you know, it's home based. So we wanted to kind of grow within this community first and expand outwards. And that's what we've been trying to do.
And if you were to look at yourself, say 8, 9 years old, and ask two young boys, hey, what do you want to be whenever you grow up? Would you have ever said gluten-free bakers?
Not in a million years. Even as far as like 10 years ago, I would have said that's the craziest thing I've ever heard. But yeah, here we are. You know, life takes you in unexpected routes and journeys.
Well, I really appreciate this so much. And again, we all probably know someone who is impacted by this disease. It doesn't discriminate any race, size, gender. It doesn't matter. You can still get diagnosed with this. So thank you so much for sharing your own story and for sharing your cookies with me on a daily basis. I had one here this morning for breakfast, scrumptious. I highly, highly recommend you guys to everyone that I come across. So thank you again for joining us today and wish you all the best.
Yeah, thanks for having us.